Do you know the feeling? A trap, inside your own head. A broken record, the same thought, over and over. The icy fear of the future. The sticky swamp of the past. The toxic whisper of a critic right now. You are not alone. Your brain, that powerful idea generator, produces up to 60,000 thoughts a day. And here's the shocker, according to research, up to 80% of them are garbage. Negative. Repetitive. The same cheap ringtone of anxiety. It's not your fault, it's the factory setting. A bug that was once a feature. An ancient survival code inherited from your ancestors. Expect the worst, fear the shadows. That's how your distant forefather avoided becoming lunch. He survived, and he passed that code on to you. But today, there are no saber-toothed tigers. Yet, the anxiety firmware remains, and this ancient operating system isn't building you a shelter. It's erecting a prison. A personal, soundproof one, right between your ears. And here lies the central paradox. The main system failure. How can the brain, which spent years digging these neural trenches of negativity, suddenly become a bulldozer to fill them in? By all logic, it should only reinforce the walls, concrete the bars. How can the architect of the prison draw the escape plan? How can the poison itself become the antidote? How can the very mechanism that created the problem suddenly be its only solution? Forget philosophy. This is pure neurobiology. Chemistry. Electricity. War and peace at the level of your synapses. And here is our promise: by the end of this film, you won't just know there's a way out. You will feel its mechanism with your neurons. We will show you how a scientific discovery, ridiculed for decades, became a scalpel, a tool for surgically hacking the code of your reality. We will give you techniques, practical, proven. This is cognitive reprogramming. You will understand how to say no, how to reject the reality offered to you by default, and with the keys in hand, you will begin to build your own, brick by brick. Imagine a soldier. He lost his leg in the war. Years have passed. The scars on his skin have healed, turning into pale, smooth marks. But every night, he wakes up in a cold sweat. He is tormented by an unbearable phantom pain. In the foot he no longer has. Physically, it's gone. He feels icy needles piercing non-existent toes. He feels a cramp seizing a calf muscle that doesn't exist. For doctors, this is phantom limb syndrome. For him, it's genuine torture. And here is the first, most crucial piece of evidence. Your reality isn't born outside. It's constructed inside. Your brain is its sole architect. For a long time, science considered the brain a mirror, a passive reflector of the world. But in the late 19th century, Spanish scientist Santiago Ramón y Cajal, peering at stained sections of brain tissue, started a revolution. He saw what no one else had. He shattered the century-old reticular theory, proving that the brain consists not of a single network, but of billions of separate autonomous cells, neurons. And here's the key conclusion. The brain isn't a mirror. It's a cartographer. It doesn't reflect the territory, it draws a map of it, every single second. And the feeling of pain in a non-existent leg isn't a glitch. It's just an old, outdated map. A stubborn neural imprint that screams the leg is still there. Now, just grasp the scale. You have up to 100 trillion neural connections in your head. That's more than the number of stars in our Milky Way galaxy. And this map isn't static. It's alive. Right now, as you listen to these words, forming new thoughts, you are physically changing the structure of your brain. You can almost hear a quiet crackle. That's new synapses being born. Every new fact, every memory, every emotion is a new stroke on the map, a new path in this boundless neural forest. Your reality is a living, breathing, constantly changing neural tapestry, and you are the one weaving it, thought by thought, second by second, 100 trillion connections, a complexity surpassing any man-made technology, constant, real-time updates. This is an incredibly complex system, and like any complex system, it is prone to errors. But what if these aren't random glitches? What if there are systemic, recurring failures in its code? Bugs that we obediently accept as unchangeable reality? What if your entire life, from your career choices to your relationships, is the result of blindly navigating by distorted, defective blueprints? What if you are living not in the world, but in its flawed replica? The piercing ring of a telephone, an unknown number. You don't answer, and an icy chill runs down your spine. Instantly, a thought is born inside. Something must have happened. Your heart begins to pound in your ears, blood rushing to your muscles. A second later, that thought mutates, becoming poison. Something has definitely happened to my loved ones. Your adrenal glands are already pumping a massive dose of cortisol, the stress hormone, into your bloodstream. Another moment, it's my fault. I should have been there. And now you're just sitting there, paralyzed by anxiety, all because of a simple, missed call. This is it, that very bug in the firmware, a cognitive distortion, its official name, catastrophizing, a systemic failure that triggers a chain reaction of biochemical terror out of absolutely nothing. In the mid-20th century, psychiatrist Aaron Beck, who initially practiced psychoanalysis, noticed something important. His depressed patients suffered not so much from their real problems as from their distorted, automatic interpretations of them. He had an epiphany that changed modern psychiatry. The root of suffering is not what happens to us, but what we tell ourselves about it. Beck called these systemic errors in thinking cognitive distortions. It was a revolution. The focus shifted from the dusty couches of Freudian analysis, from the endless excavation of childhood traumas, to the front lines, to the war with one's own mind in the present. It turned out the enemy wasn't outside. He was sitting in the command center, right behind your eyes. And this enemy is incredibly productive. Those 60,000 thoughts a day, up to 80% of them negative, and about 95% repetitive, day after day. The same broken record of anxiety. Why? Because our brain operates on an ancient survival firmware, on the principle of better safe than sorry. For the brain, it's better to make your heart leap into your throat 100 times by mistaking a stick for a snake than to miss a real threat once. This firmware isn't designed for happiness. It's designed for survival. And we pay for this security with the currency of our peace of mind, a constant background hum of anxiety. So, we live with viruses in the operating system of our consciousness, with distortions that make us suffer. For decades, we tried to patch this software with psychoanalysis and therapy, but the processor itself kept overheating. The code itself kept producing the same errors. But what if you could do more than just update the program? What if you could rewrite the source code instead of treating the symptoms? What if you could upgrade the hardware itself? What if you could change the very physical structure of your brain? For a long time, the answer was a firm, resounding no. The scientific world of the 20th century lived by one commandment. The adult brain is a stone. It doesn't change. Nerve cells don't grow. New connections don't form. Whatever you have by age 25 is your ceiling. Forever. But one young scientist, Michael Merzenich, refused to believe it. He went against everyone. His ideas were drowned in cold laughter at conferences, labeled pseudoscience. He fought his battle almost alone. Against dogma, against the ironclad belief in the brain as a stone. His decisive experiment was simple and brilliant. Imagine, using the finest electrodes, Merzenich created a precise map of a monkey's brain. This area of the cortex corresponds to the thumb, this one to the index finger. It was meticulous work. Then he amputated one of the animal's fingers. According to all the laws of science, the neural zone associated with it should have died, gone silent forever, become a dead spot on the map. A few weeks later, Merzenich connected the electrodes again. He expected to see silence, but what he saw on the oscilloscope screen blew up neuroscience. Instead of silence, there was a storm, a burst of activity. The dead zone hadn't died. It had been conquered, colonized by neighboring brain regions responsible for the other fingers. The map had rewritten itself, in real time. The brain had physically rewired itself. That was the sound of a prison crumbling, the sound of a scientific bastion that had stood for nearly 100 years falling. The brain is not a stone. It is clay, alive, malleable. This phenomenon was given a name, neuroplasticity, and here's what it means for you personally. Your hardware, the very matter of your personality, your intelligence, your habits, your fears, is not carved in granite. It is all written in the wet sand at the ocean's edge. Every thought you have, every choice you make, every action you take is a new wave. It either washes away the old patterns or carves them even deeper, turning them into canyons from which there is no escape. The discovery of neuroplasticity handed humanity a power comparable to the discovery of fire, the power over the very substance of consciousness. But it's like giving a caveman a smartphone. The possibilities are endless. The instructions are incomprehensible. If the brain can be changed, how exactly? What specific actions, what words, what thoughts become the very chisels you can use to sculpt a new version of yourself? How do you turn this chaotic process into conscious construction? How do you become the architect, not the slave, of your own neural network? Picture Aaron Beck's quiet office. It smells of old books. A patient sits across from him, shoulders slumped, gaze fixed on the floor. I'm a complete failure. I got fired. Beck doesn't argue. He doesn't console. Instead, he asks a question, like a surgeon probing for a nerve. What evidence do you have that you are a failure? The patient replies, I got fired. Beck nods and asks again, and what evidence is there to the contrary? Have you had successes in your life? The patient pauses. He recalls past projects, praise from colleagues. On his own, without pressure, he begins to see the first hairline cracks appear in the monolithic wall of his belief. He is hacking his own thought. This method is called cognitive reframing. Its mechanics are extremely simple and logical. Step 1. Catch the automatic thought. Like an entomologist catching a rare butterfly. Gently, so as not to damage it. Step 2. Gather the evidence. You become the Sherlock Holmes of your own mind, impartially seeking facts for and against the thought. Step 3. Form an alternative, balanced thought. Not, I'm a genius, but, yes, I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me a failure. I've had successes too. This isn't positive thinking. It's calibrating your perception against the standard of reality. And this is precisely why popular affirmations so often fail. A study by Wood, Perunovic, and Lee shows a shocking result. When people with low self-esteem repeat the phrase, I am lovable, they start to feel even worse. Why? Because that statement violently conflicts with their core belief, causing cognitive dissonance. Your inner critic screams, lies, And this only strengthens the original neural circuit. It's like trying to run the latest software on an old computer. You get a blue screen of death for your self-esteem. Reframing, on the other hand, doesn't break the system. It carefully updates it. This isn't magic. It's precise microsurgery at the synaptic level, where your scalpel is a focused question. You don't fight your thoughts, you analyze them. You don't try to scorch the weeds with the napalm of positivity. You carefully pull them out, studying their root system. But what fuels this process? What kind of mental energy? What spotlight must be aimed into the dark corners of the mind to conduct this complex audit? The answer is one, and it's right in front of your eyes, or rather, behind them. Remember the first time you tried to play the guitar? Your fingers felt like wood, unruly. They awkwardly pressed against the cold strings, producing a dull, buzzing sound. Or how you tried to speak your first phrases in a foreign language. Your tongue got tangled. The words felt alien. You repeated them again and again. And then, after weeks of focused practice, something like magic happened. Your fingers found the right frets on their own. The words, smooth and confident, formed into sentences by themselves. What was once impossible became automatic. This isn't magic, it's pure physics. In those moments when you were completely concentrated, a colossal neural construction project was underway in your brain. Your brain was physically changing its architecture to match the task you aimed your greatest resource at: attention. How, exactly, does this work? Focused attention isn't just effort, it's a biochemical command. When you concentrate, your brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals. Two key ones are acetylcholine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine increases alertness, while acetylcholine acts as a molecular marker. It flags the specific neural circuits that are active at that moment. It literally tells the brain, this is important. Remember it. Strengthen this connection. Next, neurotrophic factors come into play. They shift the marked circuits into a state of heightened plasticity, as if heating up solidified wax, making old connections pliable. This is why intense, focused practice is dozens of times more effective than distracted repetition. You're not just learning, you're giving your brain direct permission and the chemical tools to rebuild itself. And this isn't a beautiful metaphor. It's a measurable fact, visible under an electron microscope. Every time you learn something new synaptic spines grow on the dendrites of your neurons. Existing axons thicken, becoming more insulated so signals travel faster. Your brain is not a hard drive. It's a living sculpture. And every act of focused attention is a precise strike of the chisel. The master sculptor here is you. So, now we know. Attention is not just a beam of light in the darkness. It is a cold, precise laser scalpel capable of redrawing the neural map of your brain. We have unconsciously used it to learn a language or master an instrument. But what happens if we aim this scalpel not at an external skill, but at an internal, deep-rooted belief? What if we aim it at the most powerful idea of all? An idea that for centuries was considered the domain of miracles or blind faith. The idea of self-healing. Imagine a clinical trial, a new revolutionary drug for chronic pain, hundreds of desperate people, and among them is one man. Let's call him Patient X. Years of dull, aching pain have become the background noise of his life. He's a cynic, but he decides to believe. Every day, at the same time, he takes a small, smooth white pill. And a miracle happens. Within a week, the pain that had gripped his body like a vice begins to recede. Within a month, he feels better than he has in years. He can walk again, work, live. He thanks the doctors, science, fate for this salvation. The trial ends. The doctor calls him into his office, and these words hit him like an electric shock, ringing in his ears. "Congratulations, your condition has significantly improved. But there's one thing. You were in the control group. Your pill was a placebo. It contained only sugar." What happened in that moment? Patient X's brain wasn't deceived. It was activated. This is the placebo effect, the ultimate manifestation of the mind's power over the body. When a person genuinely believes they are receiving medicine, their brain, specifically their prefrontal cortex, issues a command: launch our own internal pharmacy. It begins to produce endorphins, natural opioids with pain-relieving power comparable to morphine. Neuroscientist Fabrizio Benedetti proved this. The brain alters dopamine and serotonin levels in reward centers. It initiates complex biochemical cascades that mimic the action of a real drug. A placebo is not passive imagination. It is an active, controlled neurobiological process, triggered by a single thing: belief. The belief that healing is possible. And if you still think this is all in your head, here's a fact. Inside the humming tunnel of an fMRI machine, you can look inside the brain in real time. And these scans show that when a person takes a placebo and feels relief, the exact same centers in their brain light up: the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, the same ones that activate when taking a real opioid analgesic. This isn't fantasy. It's not self-deception. It is self-directed, controlled biochemistry. The pain subsided because the brain ordered it to subside. The brain received an offer, "This is medicine," and accepted it, rewriting the body's physical reality to match that offer. And so the circle closes, transforming from a mystery into a working schematic. We have seen that our brain is physically plastic and capable of change. We have learned that our attention is a chemical tool that initiates these changes. And now we see that our faith, our belief, can alter the very biochemistry of our bodies, activating our internal pharmacy. All the pieces of the neurobiological puzzle are on the table before us. How do we put them together? How do we turn this shocking theory into a daily, practical tool that can be used right now? Let's return to our hero. It's morning. He opens his email. It's that same message from his boss that used to ruin his entire day. And the initial reaction is the same: the familiar, icy jab of anxiety in his solar plexus. The thought flashes in his mind: it's over. I'm going to be fired. But now, something new happens. He doesn't fall into the thought. He notices it. He observes it from a distance, with the detachment of a meteorologist watching a cloud pass by. He no longer identifies with it. He sees it as an old, overplayed script, a bug in the firmware. And instead of succumbing to panic, he asks himself a question: what if this is just a request for more information? The external event hasn't changed, but his internal biochemical storm was prevented by a single act of mindful observation. This is the daily practice. 3 simple, fundamental steps. Step 1. Notice. Learn to recognize your automatic negative thoughts, like flipping on a warning light on the dashboard of your consciousness. Simply catch them the moment they appear, like an internal radar. Step 2. Challenge. Ask that thought a few direct, hard-hitting questions. Is this 100% true? What irrefutable evidence is there? Is there another, more realistic explanation? You're not arguing. You're conducting an impartial interrogation. Step 3. Redirect. Consciously shift your focus of attention, like switching tracks at a railway junction, not to forced positivity, but to the balanced alternative you found in Step 2. Notice. Challenge. Redirect. Again and again. And here is the main secret. The goal of this practice is not to force yourself to think positively. That is an act of violence that, as we recall, only strengthens the internal conflict. The goal is different, to develop mental flexibility, to stop being a biochemical slave to your initial reactions. This is not a fight against thoughts, it is the cessation of the fight. You simply stop believing everything your brain tells you. You start treating your thoughts not as facts, but as proposals that arrive in your internal inbox. And as we all know, any proposal can be declined. Now you have everything. You know that the map of your brain is not a sentence carved in granite, but a living, editable project. You have received a set of precise tools, from the scalpel of attention to the methods of cognitive interrogation, to become the chief architect of this project. You have seen its blueprints and understood where the systemic vulnerabilities lie, which you can use to your advantage. Now, armed with this knowledge, let's take one final step back and look at the whole picture. At what all this means for you, right now. Let's put it all together. We started with the map of reality that your brain draws, an architecture of illusions. Then we found systemic failures in it, cognitive distortions that cause us to suffer. For a long time, it was believed that this map could not be changed. But the discovery of neuroplasticity proved that the brain's hardware can be reprogrammed by the software of our consciousness. Our tools for this became our focused attention and the techniques of cognitive reframing. And the ultimate proof of our power over the system was the placebo effect, the ability to change our biochemistry through the power of belief. These are not separate facts. They are links in a single chain, a chain that can either become shackles, binding you to the past, or the key to your freedom. Remember where we began, with the feeling of being locked inside your own head. The feeling that your reactions, your fears, your beliefs are who you are. A silent, echoless prison built from your own past experiences. But now you can see the walls of this prison. You know they are made not of stone, but of hardened neural pathways. And you hold in your hands the tools to build a door. Our hero is no longer a victim, banging helplessly on the walls. He has become an architect. He didn't demolish the prison entirely. The external world and its challenges are still there. But he learned how to build windows, to open doors. He moved from learned helplessness to conscious authorship. And he understood the greatest paradox. Freedom is not the absence of walls. It is the awareness that between stimulus and response, there is a gap, a space. And in that space lies our power, our choice. Ultimately, it all comes down to one most important idea. Your reality is not what happens to you. Your reality is the story your brain tells you about it. Every day, every hour, every minute. And the greatest discovery is that you can stop being just a passive listener to this story. You can pick up the pen. You can become its author. Right now. Now it's your move. We've traveled this long road together, from a single neuron to an entire universe inside the skull. During our investigation, what was the biggest revelation for you? Was it the fact that the brain can be physically changed by the power of thought, its neuroplasticity? Or was it how systematically and predictably we deceive ourselves with cognitive distortions? Write just one word in the comments: brain, if you were more amazed by its limitless flexibility, or deception, if you were more struck by the depth of our self-delusions. Your answer will show which part of this story resonated with you the most.